Hi, welcome
Hi.
to welcome to Fashion Business Series 2022. It's the first of the year. This panel is called Renting, Thrifting, and Extending Product Life Cycles, with a major focus on renting, thrifting, and really how product life cycles can be extended. So on the panel, we have Oyindamola, Aleshinloye. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Oyindamola. I'm creative director of Kadiju. We are a Lagos-based fashion line. We're a Lagos-based women-led fashion line. So pretty much all of our fabrics are like dead stock. So all of our pieces are made from dead stock fabric. We try to implement as much of either recycled fabric in our practices. We've been launched since it's been a couple of months, almost a year actually. Yeah, so we launched August last year, and all of our pieces are made in Nigeria.
Great.
Okay, Cleo, Tash, please tell us about yourselves.
So we are Style Rotate, and we are currently Southern Africa's fastest growing rental platform. And yeah, I'm Cleo, I'm one of the co-founders.
And I'm Tash. And yeah, we launched in November 2019 and have been just growing ever since, and just like on a mission to make renting a everyday occurrence for the South African fashion consumer.
Yeah, so our whole philosophy is like invest in few good quality basics, and the rest of your wardrobe should be rented because it just makes sense for the modern day consumer, and it makes sense from not only an environmental point of view but also from a convenience point of view. But we deliver nationwide in South Africa, and yeah, anyone can order online on our website. We are very quick and efficient kind of way to get a new outfit for an event or a special occasion, or just, you know, for your day. And then we also have a showroom in Cape Town, which we're also looking to grow in, or to start one in Joburg in the next few months. And yeah, people can come and try on outfits and engage with the product, you know, see what really fits. And then, basically
kind of what we do.
That's what we do in a nutshell.
Sounds really cool. So you did mention you started in 2019, and in 2020, COVID happened. So how did the pandemic affect Style Rotate, your business? Did it have a positive impact? Did it have a negative impact? So how?
So so obviously when we launched, it was the end of November, and we had 3 really incredible months. You know, people really took to the idea, and as we know, renting outfits is a very new kind of concept, especially in Africa. And it was really hard because as we had grown momentum, you know, we had major lockdowns and restrictions. No one was allowed out. No, there were no events. So obviously that we knew we weren't going to be operating.
Yeah, it felt like the rug was like pulled out from us just when we were gaining traction. But one thing is that, I mean, we all thought that it was just going to be a shorter term thing. So I remember the initial discussion Cleo and I had was that, great, it's 2 weeks, like we can do this, it's fine. I think if we knew at that stage that it was going to be as long as it was, I don't know if we'd been able to like keep up our spirit and our passion. But basically what we did is that in the end, we really tried to turn it into a positive, and we used the time to grow our community through our Instagram. And we wanted to emerge from COVID with a customer or a group of people who really understood renting and got behind it as a concept, as a way, as a solution to this kind of fast fashion model that we're all trapped in. So we used the time to just like educate and speak about renting.
And also 2 positive kind of things that really came out of the pandemic is that I think in many ways, the fashion landscape became a more conscious landscape throughout the world.
Right.
There were more discussions happening about sustainability in fashion, and, you know, experience over ownership. And there's definitely been a bit of a movement since lockdown, I think. And the second thing is that post-pandemic, people there's been many predictions, and I've seen this, like, first and foremost, is that people really have a bigger appetite to go out and to dress up. So any, you know, things that you may not have, you know, dressed up as much for is happening more frequently. So that's also a perk.
Yeah, that's actually so true. I also noticed over here in Nigeria, people really felt that urge to, regardless of the fact that there was a pandemic, people still felt the urge to get dressed, you know, take pictures, and people really wanted to look good. And yeah, so you'd say the pandemic had a positive impact on your business then?
Well,
in some way, yeah.
Oh, okay,
obviously,
that's really
definitely,
cool.
It had us, no, so I mean, definitely there was pros and cons.
Yeah.
And the cons were obviously that our business was
silent,
was inactive
like,
for basically on and off for 2 years. But there were positives that also emerged.
Yeah. Kadiju, Oyi, what about you?
I think for me, because we launched right in the middle of the pandemic. I had moved to Nigeria right before Nigeria went into lockdown. This was in 2020, I believe.
Yeah, 2020.
And I was supposed to be here for about 2 weeks. And I just ended up extending my my flight. Anyways, for me, it definitely influenced the kind of pieces, or like my design process, and just switching how I experience like my relationship with clothes. Because for the most part, it's not just clothes. It's like people want to express themselves. It's creating pieces that make people feel a certain way. Because after being locked up for, I mean, it was a good couple of months. People want to dress up and feel good about themselves and buy pieces that, you know, make them feel some type of way. So for me, I wouldn't say the pandemic, I mean, I'm not sure because I've only been in business less than a year. So this is all I've known. But having launched right at the middle of the pandemic and creating the kind of pieces that we do create, it's been a good run. It's been a good run.
Because also your colors, I've seen on like, you know, your product looks like it's very kind of bold and bright and happy.
It is.
And
it is
fashion forward. So, and that's the prediction globally, is that post-pandemic people will wear more color and, you know, want to dress more.
Exactly. I feel like since the pandemic, there's been an explosion of just like creativity and like just an expression of self. And it's like, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to watch people in like different creative like spaces just do their thing. But yeah.
I think one of the pros of, not to really stay or dwell on this pandemic issue, but it really did open a lot of people's eyes, and it really made a lot of people aware of their environment, and people were starting to take more sustainable, more ethical approaches towards living, towards fashion, towards eating, and just becoming more aware of the environment. And today is Earth Day, so happy Earth Day. Really.
Happy Earth Day.
Yeah, so happy Earth Day. Yeah, so I think that was one of like the pros, and a lot of businesses as well began to adopt to certain changes. So as a designer and as business owners, what strategies or models will you say you have adopted in regards to extending, you know, product life cycle? Because now you're becoming more aware of, you know, of your environment, so less waste, more taking things and prolonging, or more finding use rather in everything. So how do you say you've adopted business models, or what strategies have you come up with or adopted in your businesses here to extend the product life cycles?
So like one of our most exciting projects that we just launched at the end of last year is our community rentals. So we now offer our community members to list their items on our website. So if they've got something that they kind of bought and is hanging in their wardrobe, and it's just really like its life cycle is almost paused, we've given our community an opportunity to like elongate that and keep it in circulation and have it enjoyed by members of our community. So we launched that in November last year, and it's been our fastest growing model by far. I think what's amazing is that even when we started, Cleo and I were really expecting to have to hold the customer's hand and convince people about this rental thing. And we spoke about it a bit before, but how renting is just such a new and like kind of a challenging concept for some people to grasp. But we keep getting surprised by the South African fashion consumer, because she keeps being game for this cool new stuff. And so it's been growing and growing, and it's now almost our biggest model that we run. And it's great because it allows our community members to make a bit of money on the side as well. So not only are they lengthening the life cycle of items that they own, they're also making a bit of money, which is, you know, people love that, and times are hard. So
it's really like, such a no-brainer. Also so when we speak about models, we've got 3 kind of core models, and the first one is we buy certain pieces from like international brands to offer access to those to our local consumers, and then we also partner with a lot of local African designers mainly South African at the moment, but we're looking to expand our database of designers. We partner with them to make, you know, local design more accessible to the average person, because I don't know, in my career, I realized at some point like how inaccessible a lot of local pieces and designs were to our market, and just to the average person who's not necessarily in the now of like exactly what's going on in the fashion industry. And also with local designers, you know, they really face like a big challenge. They can't mass produce, you know, pieces.
It's expensive,
it's highly expensive. So this kind of gives them a way to, or us a way to help market, you know, local brands to our audience. And then our third business model, fastest growing, is what Tash spoke about, our consignment, our community rentals.
And and as a brand, like, it's so interesting to be able to share that with like a wider community, and then they also get like feedback. We have one brand that we've recently partnered with who are so popular on our site, and we kind of can say to them, listen, like, we love it, but maybe you do it in a green, and now they're, you know, producing a green colorway, and so like it's learning for both companies. It's like nice synergy and partnership,
big insights and data for you know brands. And also what I wanted to say was, I just blanked now. Data. Oh yes. It also, so there's actually a kind of global statistic that was found in a study as to how rental companies are actually making it, like, people may not have heard of a brand, and then they rent it, say through us or another rental company, and they are like, the percentage was like 60% more likely to actually buy something from that specific brand later down the line. So it's also just from a local point of view, assisting with
elevating local designers.
Exactly. Oh, and also we have to mention, we are launching our resale section, which we are really excited about. So next week we're having like a little micro launch, and pieces that we are, you know, going to take off our rental platform will now go into our resale section. People can actually buy the pieces and, you know, love them for longer. And we've got some really excited guests, because some people really fall in love with pieces and they just want to own them. But by then the piece has been rotated several times.
Oyin, how will you say
so for us, for the most part, since our inception, I would say we've employed a redesign model. So even with designs that are specific to Kadiju's, it's possible to, say, alter the length of an item or like change a sleeve. Because we find that when people, or at least when consumers are a bit more involved in the design process, it sort of switches a psychological thing where you have a bit more like attachments to an item.
Absolutely.
Because we find that we live in a time where fast fashion is such a thing, and understanding that like everyone deserves a right to sort of explore like explore fashion and be able to buy pieces that they do like and enjoy, and quality pieces. Also employing like rental services. So for us, we've been testing it over the couple of months because it's a bit difficult not having like certain infrastructure to make things move as smoothly as we would like. But just having those services available where we're able to tweak certain pieces, where we're able to rent pieces, because the goal is to also pay staff fair wages, like livable wages, and the pieces aren't necessarily cheap. So understanding the society that we do live in, at least my reality as a Nigerian, and just having options available where people are able to, you know, still wear bum-ass clothes and still look great and still, you know, recycle these pieces and have the pieces still like move in a circular motion, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just been offering tailoring services. Nothing is set in stone for us. I think also being such a new brand, and even trying to like research business models that have worked in the past, or figuring out how people have done it in the past. It's not necessarily working because we're in such a time with the pandemic where it's such a newness. So yeah, it's just been employing rentals, tailoring services, alterations, custom pieces. We find that helps people, I guess, just have more of an attachment to pieces.
Yeah, almost respect the style and design.
Exactly.
How will you say, you, because I mean, watching your business grow, I can say you've created a community and that community is still growing. So how will you say you can take these rental services, or how will you take it to your community and also moving past your community so people are willing and open to, you know, renting, to pulling? Because I mean, we know like renting and thrifting, reselling, like these are sort of not, they aren't the most common or popular notions when it comes to fashion, especially in this side of the world. So as a designer, how do you convince or take that to your consumer and let them know, look, yes, it's great to have the new stuff, but it's also great to have, you know, a piece of the old stuff, either through renting or through thrifting or through upcycling or through recycling, you know? How will you do that, or how do you do it?
I think for me, it's been understanding that fast fashion is here to stay. So like, it's hard to, like, that reality is hard, but it's understanding that the clothes that I make are like, it's slow. There's such a consciousness and everything else that goes into it. So it's implementing how quick.
Yeah.
That it's like the internet, it's how people consume things. It's understanding those patterns and implementing that in how, and implementing that in how it's like, it's the same pieces. It's the same pieces that you could buy for full price, that you could still get at a fraction of the price, but you still have access. So I think it's an access thing as well, and everyone sort of deserves a right to that. So the goal is to educate our consumers more. So it's more education, more creating more content, if anything, doing collaborations. The hope is to, at some point, hopefully collaborate with you guys. And just collaborating, breaking the barrier. It's like, there's so much that could be done. There's so much that could be done. And just education. I feel like with education, collaboration, it's possible. It's a slow process, at least in Lagos, Nigeria, where we're located. I mean, it would be a slow process and we might get validation from like outside before we get on this side, which is absolutely fine. But I do know that with just persistence and more work and more education and collaboration, it could definitely be done.
Yeah, for sure. Like thrifting and renting doesn't always have the best connotations, especially for the older generations, is what we find, who don't necessarily know a lot about sustainability and why, you know, in fashion, it's such a huge issue. And also, yeah, as you said, like a bit of a classist thing in some communities and cultures. But I think like us, part of our job is to really just educate our consumer, but also to, you know, show how easy it is, how cool it is,
how exciting it is
through, you know, also like, as you know, you're a creative director. That's also a big role as creative director, right? Is to like show people that it's cool. It's, you know, a journey you should be part of. And we've really tried hard with our social media and our imagery and the people we collaborate with to kind of help that mind shift change. And I think the Gen Z generation is going to be a little bit more progressive in that way because of what concerns them. I mean, just from a sustainability point of view, they are the generation that like cares more. Yeah, and just in our experience, I'm sure you would also agree, is like seeing older people are almost a little bit more skeptical of what we do, whereas younger people are almost more, even though they are also consuming fast fashion, they are almost a bit more on board.
Yeah. And I think it's the concept of like what fast fashion represents. It's having access to these pieces and having access to like just indulge in fashion. But I mean, with the pandemic, it's like we're, for the most part, the younger generation, we're broke. It's like, so who wants to break the bank on pieces that you most likely would, after a post on Instagram, it's like you're done with this. Like, so just
so true.
Having that in mind and being conscious of the fact that it's what it is for the most part, and still doing the work of creating pieces, of consciously creating pieces and all these other practices and having these pieces available. But yeah, with access, I feel like for the most part, that's what it is with
access to ownership.
And
also Gen Z's appreciate, you know, access and experience over ownership too.
That is so true. They really do appreciate experience. They really, really, really appreciate experience. So, I mean, which is like very true. I think right now I'm just also trying to understand. So for brands who don't necessarily have a model, or they haven't particularly thought about renting or thrifting or reselling, how do you think they can break, you know, into that mold of, or rather break into that thing or that room of being able to create a product life cycle or create pieces that can be resold or that can be rented? How do you, because I know for Star Rotates, you definitely look out for certain brands and probably look out for certain pieces that maybe have market value or people, you know, love in general. But for a brand who doesn't necessarily know these things, how do they design? Is it a design thing where they are designing, you know, for people to rent? Or I mean, do you get my question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's ideally we want to be in a position where you can rent any kind of clothing from us. So right now we're focused on like smart to formal occasion, because that was kind of like the demand or the need that was like our in, like we were speaking earlier about like how do you get people to understand renting it. A special occasion is the most obvious like in, right? But what we kind of foresee for our business is that a small scale denim producer, I mean, because there used to be, my background is I was a fashion buyer at a retailer, and so I've kind of seen like how amazing the local and like in the Western Cape here in South Africa, the garment, like the technology that we have here is amazing, but also just like how hard it has been hit in the last few years, and like what basically like we want to be able to be in a place where a local denim producer there's one denim wash house left in South Africa, and we want to be able to elevate that so that people can rent local denim through our website. So I think it's a stage of right now it might feel like rentals only really for people who are making occasion wear, but it's not the case. Like the long-term goal is that to facilitate all kinds of producers, and then the other thing is that you can start like designing with that in mind, I think, and like even offering like mending services so that your customers can come back and mend their items with you. I think that's amazing, because there's how many people buy something and then, you know, a button rips and they never fix it and then it just sits in their wardrobe. If you're actively speaking to your customers all the time about, hey, if something goes wrong with your item, we're here to fix it. We produced it, we can fix it, we can lengthen that life
instead
cycle.
of
throwing it away.
and dispose model.
Yeah.
For sure. I also think like we've approached, I mean, on the whole, a lot of designers and brands have been very open to partnering with us and very excited by it. And even some of them approach us now because they've seen, you know, they've heard of us, they've seen us partnering with many brands. But there are some people who still are like, we approached one designer who said, you know, no, it's going to cheapen their brand if they partner with us and rent out a few of their pieces, because everyone's got, you know, even just a few samples, and you know,
sample waste. We will rent out your samples for you and you can make money off samples, like
as obviously if they something. But this designer just his remark was just kind of appalling, because just telling us that it's going to cheapen his brand if he rents with us. But I think that's also like any brand can, you know, potentially have a rental side to them, like through us, or, you know, so brands should definitely jump on board the rental market as one of those kind of tips. But also upcycling. A lot of brands, even if upcycling is not necessarily your thing, I think there's a way that upcycling can be introduced into any kind of brand's collection. And then maybe and also for big retailers, like there's no reason that they can't have a donation box in their store and say, guys, drop off your, and I know a few brands are doing it, but they're not fulfilling so drop off your older garments and we'll give you an incentivizer, we'll give you a voucher, and then we'll create a collection that we can actually see in their store through upcycled pieces, which we aren't seeing at all really in, you know, our local retailers on a big scale. It's the more smaller boutique brands. Rethread's one of our faves locally, and we stock some of their pieces. They're full upcycle kind of company. I think you know about them, but so there's a lot of ways that brands can, you know, without even just renting or upcycling, can join that circular fashion movement and lengthen the lifespan of their product.
Rethreads actually is part of Woven Threads this year, so we're super excited for people to, you know, discover Rethreads. She's stuff is really cool. I think it's very innovative. Okay, so as opposed to upcycling and recycling, I mean, of course we know another way to like extend like product life cycles is through thrifting and through renting. What would you say the benefits are of thrifting and the benefits of renting, and which will you say which way, you know, higher compared to the other?
For the consumer?
For both brands, for designers, and for the consumer as well. Who should go first? Who wants? Anyone can answer. Anyone can go first. Okay, because you're a designer.
For the business, I would say definitely increased revenue, because you have one item in rotation for like a longer amount of time, as opposed to like selling, as opposed to just selling a one-off. Also, definitely low carbon footprint.
Yeah.
It's less, I mean, I believe we all know what that means. But yeah, for the consumer, more access. It's like, as you mentioned, it's like most people just have clothes just sticking in their wardrobes and like not necessarily wearing it after that one time. So it's having access to a wide array of like designs or brands or whatever, and not necessarily just buying clothes that are underutilized.
Yeah.
So
No, it also
Yeah,
just allows
that
me
makes
as a
sense.
consumer to really have fun with like fashion, because as Owen said, you have obviously like a bigger you have more access to different products, but also because you're not buying it, you can also test drive, is what we call it, different styles that you may not have considered in the past. It just lets you be a little bit more adventurous and risque, I guess, with your options. Like you might not buy like a brightly colored feather dress because you know you're only going to wear it once, even though a lot of people still do, but you'll rent it. So we feel people can be a little bit bolder with their choices too.
Right, because I think for me, coming from a consumer perspective, right, and just living in a world where we think, we see it, we want it, we buy it. Renting is something that's still a bit alien to me. So, I mean, trying to convince a consumer who's so used to shopping, you know, that shopping experience in particular, I want to go into a store, or I want to scroll through, you know, ASOS, Zara, whatever, and just like pick something, shop it. I see it, I want it, I want to have it, regardless of the fact that it's in the back of my closet. How do you then take this? How do you tell a consumer, or how do you convince a consumer, look, it's great you want to buy it, it's great you love it, but you should rent it because renting is, you know, much better. So do you get me? It's something I feel consumers need to step out of that mentality where they see they want it, they buy it, rather than rent it.
And we talk
we offer them.
Go ahead.
Okay. I definitely believe it's a psychological thing as well. So with starting Kadiju, for example, I paid so much attention to like the customer experience, because I had spent so many years in uni doing either like in-house styling or working in-house with like certain fashion brands, and I just understand how vital, like just say a packaging or a certain kind of customer experience, or like a consumer receiving a package and just like opening that up, and it's like just that luxury experience. I understand all of what that means. And for the most part, when people do shop, it's like when people sometimes would rather shop online than go in store, it's almost like receiving a present. And that's almost thrilling. So it's figuring out ways to implement those things that can psychologically, it's like implementing a customer experience that's still very pleasurable with pieces that customers are renting. So it doesn't have to just be like I don't know, it doesn't have to be less pleasurable or less pleasant.
That's exactly it.
The brand experience is like so important. So we really like have put effort into, like, you know, when someone, they can come to our shop or showroom essentially, but if they don't, they are still receiving a nice luxe brand experience, because we are, you know, packaging their dress in a beautiful branded tissue paper and putting it in a beautiful pink box with our logo and a little love letter from us. That's personalized. And so like we really want that brand experience to, I mean, we've ordered stuff from some pretty expensive international retailers just to add to our inventory, and you pay, you know, a lot more than you'd pay for a dress here, and it arrives in literally a plastic like packet with no, like there was just no, I was pretty shocked the other day. And so it's just being, putting consideration into attention to detail
and making it as exciting as shopping. So I think like,
or even
more exciting. So when Cleo and I started the business, I came out of working in like as a buyer at a retailer, and I was really actually just super disillusioned with the industry. And to me, like, I'd fallen out of love with fashion entirely. I thought it was ruining the planet and there was no answer, basically. And Cleo like introduced me to the fact that there is a way to enjoy clothes, and it doesn't have to be like, if you want to be sustainable, it doesn't need to be like hemp and like, you know, we don't need to all dress in like only natural fibers, and you know, it can be exciting. And what Sour does is it gives you the experience of buying something new, experiencing that new item, that like dopamine hits that Cleo was like saying that you get. And it's just as good, if not better. I mean, we have customers who come back time and time again because they just love the experience. And it's just as good, if not better, than shopping for them.
Totally. Yeah, we get that feedback often, that people really enjoy our customer experience. And also just one of the perks, I think we're still answering how to shift the mindset. I think one of our strong points, and something that's very important, is our curation of what we offer. So like, I used to be fashion director, and with Tash's buying experience together, we really like spend time deciding what we're going to buy and curating that offering. So it's not just a whole bunch of, you know, clutter that you need to like kind of,
so that the product's exciting. And I feel like that's what your brand does as well, really well, is that like your stuff is more exciting than fast fashion stuff. So people want to consume what you are making because it's so like amazing art. And art, and it's different. And that's, I think.
And also, just to answer, when you said thrifting, it may seem, it might not always have the best connotation, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be wearing the same thing as the 20 other people that went to the same store at the party. So it also offers that unique kind of outfit experience and renting too.
I really think people should get into thrifting because you get to find a lot of valuable pieces, you know, a lot of pieces that don't exist, or pieces that most people in this time and age haven't seen. You know, vintage is very lovely. It's very fashionable, always in vogue. I really think people need to get into thrifting and just forget about the fact that it's thrifting. I mean, you're getting something of value, to be really honest. Turn it into anything else you want it to be. It doesn't need to be what you picked it as, you know, restyle, revamp. Yeah, totally. Go into your,
no, because I love thrifting, so I'm getting very excited. But I think that part of the stigma, the bad connotations that have been attached to thrifting is because when people think of the word thrifting, they maybe think of like a really dusty store crammed with like old like not great pieces, and they have to like sift through things. But what's really great is locally we're seeing in South Africa at least a huge kind of boom, and also just even since the pandemic, of brands that are curated, kind of pre-loved brands that are offering, you know, pieces that have been curated, that are, so that they don't have to go and, you know, thrift in the kind of old context.
Right.
Like there's so many, we're actually partnering with a brand next week that's a pre-loved kind of luxury brand. Like I'm sure you've heard of it internationally, the Real, and there's so many kind of brands, or even luxury brands are having to do it. Like I think Gucci was one of the brands that are now partnering with the Real to offer that kind of pre-loved circular fashion element. So luxury brands are being forced to also, but there's just been a boom of now online pre-loved fashion brands in South Africa that are curated. You don't have to go into a stuffy old dusty store. You can literally order things on social media or online. And I think that's really doing the word thrift or thrifting, maybe it being slightly different to, you know, pre-loved clothing, but it's giving that this industry, I mean, we all in at the circular fashion industry, a better name, and almost like a revival. There's definitely been a bit of a revival and awakening of this kind of circular fashion model, because it's not a new one. My gran told me that I think she rented her wedding dress in the 20s, literally. So
what is the like thrifting scene like in Nigeria?
Go on.
Okay. So I feel like it's not necessarily something new. It's just a classist thing. So it's like we have secondhand markets where people buy bend down select. So it's like clothes that So they open up bales and it's just like a heap of clothes and you just like select from them. So it's not necessarily a new thing. It's something that's been around since forever.
Forever. Yeah.
It's just, I think, making sure it's more easily accepted, or at least breaking certain like whatever notions or perceptions of like only a certain class of people can like wear certain kind of clothes. I think it's just breaking those barriers to, it's like thrifting is cool. I love thrifting. But yeah, in Nigeria, but now with the internet and like Instagram, there are more people selling pieces on like, I go on Instagram and there's an ad for, you know, pre-used items, which is pretty cool. I can't wait to see in a couple of years just how far that goes. And hopefully there will be stores with, you know, pre-loved items where people can just walk in. But yeah.
I feel like also circular fashion, so say there's circular fashion and then linear fashion, I suppose, would be, you know, just buying kind of the, you know, take, make and dispose model. And within linear fashion is everything from, you know, designer all the way down to, you know, cheap, fast fashion, like made really unethically. And then in circular fashion, there's also that really like broad spectrum of different types of models and different like types. So you like, you get flea markets, but then you also get, you know, more premium, like curated. So it's almost like it's a multifaceted world in its own.
Yeah, it is. How do you say the secondhand market has affected renting and thrifting businesses in Africa? Will you say it's pushed or it sort of stunted the growth of rentals and thrift stores?
I feel like, you might be better like suited to answer this, because I guess we only really have the South African perspective. But from like some kind of look, like understanding, I feel like it has stunted it. I think that there's definitely that negative connotation, which is a super complex issue, right? And it's like, I know that there's a lot of problems with like the supply chain in itself of those secondhand markets, and how you've got European companies coming and kind of overloading their kind of essentially waste in Africa, which is and dumping, which is in itself hindering a terrible kind of model that's kind of in place. But I think that that's not helping Africans and South Africans understand the benefits of circular fashion and the need for it now, where we're sitting with the fashion industry in the dire situation that it is. So definitely, I would say it's negative.
I totally agree with you. Because there's so much more that could be done. And it's like, we have these things. Sure, it's like with Africa just being the dumping ground for like most of these pieces, it's like at the end of the day, they just end up in landfills and the pieces are here. But yeah, I would say it's definitely had some negative connotations. I'm hoping in some near future, with the work and just the education and collaborations and all of that is able to switch. I totally agree with you.
So I'm going to say, like, I agree with both of you, but I also disagree because no, I mean, it is what you're saying, what you guys are saying, but like, it's, if you look at the circular fashion world, is like basically what I said, like when there's like so many different parts of the circular fashion world. And I think thrifting isn't necessarily being detrimental to the circular fashion world. I think it's actually like, a lot of brands have made, you know, circular fashion become less of a, or thrifting become less of a controversial, not cool word. But then there is problematic practices like
the dumping.
So it's like very layered.
We got to talk about it. I think brands, like everybody's just got to talk about thrifting and talk about rental and talk about resale. And I think also like everybody needs to realize that any kind of circular model is benefiting everybody. Like it's benefiting the planet, it's benefiting the brand, it's benefiting the renters, it's benefiting the consumer. And like, that's what gets us excited, is that brands like yours are keen. Like you're looking at your models and you're thinking, I want to kind of test the waters with renting. And that's kind of, it's not a one or the other. It's not buy or rent. There's synergy, and it's important that we are like conscious in both practices.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just like one more thing before we go into questions. There's a question here, but will you say, as a designer, will you say in the next 3 to 5 years, looking at the current landscape and of course the way the industry is constantly evolving and people are always learning, will you say designers will begin to adopt more circular business models in regards to renting, in regards to reselling? What will you say?
I think designers wouldn't have a choice, because it's with Gen Z, it's like, even with just like luxury brands or like bigger brands, and being more conscious of the kind of, it's like we see with H&M or like Zara, and like these like silly campaigns that they do put out. And then the blow up happens, and then we see these inclusivity and all of that. It's like brands wouldn't have a choice.
Absolutely.
We're reaching a phase, we're reaching a time where it just wouldn't make sense for certain business models or certain ways of designing, for there to not just be a consciousness in like the practices that we do employ in our business models. I think, yeah, with time, it just would be a thing.
And those supply chains that are propping up those multinational companies, they're not gonna hold up the weight of those companies much longer. Like, we're on a tipping point. I mean, like experiencing the way that retailers treat their supply chain, I saw it firsthand, and it's just not going to be able to continue the way that it is. So they're going to get to a stage where they don't have anybody they've crushed their suppliers so badly that there isn't going to be anybody making their clothes. And like, I just hope that the big players wake up before we get to that phase. But I guess the jury is out. You got to have hope that that's going to be the case.
Yeah,
you're right.
I think they could be backed into a corner in a way at some point.
Yeah.
Everyone will have no choice but to adopt and adapt, really, to change. Yeah, absolutely. So let's take the question we have. How have you gone about educating people towards more sustainable practices? So, okay, it's like a bunch of questions within a question, but yeah, let's take the first one. How have you gone about educating people towards more sustainable practices?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
So I think for me, it started with even right down to employing staff. Because I don't know, with just my Nigerian realities, like with the artisans that I do work with, or my tailors, for example, and educating them on methods of cutting, for example, for there to be less waste. It's just like, what is she talking about? So I feel like, or like, say we have a no waste policy. So it's like for every fabric waste from our like cutting table, it's like we've stored all of that. And we're in the process of collaborating with like a brand to sort of have all that waste upcycled into new fabric. So just like educating my staff, figuring out ways to, I feel like with sustainability, it's difficult to, or it's easy to just like over talk it. So with even just having pieces in such limited quantities where people, it's such a conscious decision when you do shop from my brand, the community that I've been able to grow and build with is people that it's like, you know, that you like this piece, you know, this is something that it's a staple in your wardrobe. It's not a one-off. It's not something you wear once and like just forget about it, for example. So it's just like the education and the ways we do, from the kind of content that we do create, the kind of like our design process, the manufacturing process. It's implementing more modular methods in our designs where people feel it'd be more connection. It's like just, you know, as opposed to just like talk. You almost feel it. It's like, because I'm very shy. And we do have a team that sort of also tries to communicate that with our consumers. But yeah, all of that sort of goes into our brand image and the kind of pieces that we do put out. But yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure that because like that drives you creating your clothes, and so the spirit of that is in the clothes that you make. And like, yeah, it's kind of, that's like, it's less even about talk and more about the way that you're making the clothes, and then that means that people are consuming it more consciously.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, does it, so I guess it's a follow-up to the first one about how do you educate people, and she wants to know, does it impact how you think about growth in regards to business? So I guess it's a question of, you know, if you're educating people and people are listening and running along with the knowledge you're impacting, does it impact your growth, or do people take what you're saying and work with it? I think that's the question.
Sure. So we also use social media as a tool to educate our community on, you know, sustainable practices and why it is, you know, important to adopt, you know, circular fashion kind of approach to dressing. But it definitely also affects our growth, because the more people on board and understanding why we do what we do, the more customers we have.
It's a slightly different question for us, I guess, because we're not producing. So our growth is limitless in getting everybody on board for rental. So the more we talk about these sustainable practices, the more people get on board with what we're doing. And I think it is an interesting question, because if you're a producer and you want people to produce more, consume more consciously, I think she's kind of asking, does that mean less growth as a byproduct of that? But yeah, Oyi, what is your kind of take on that?
So for me, that was one of my huge concerns, because it's a business at the end of the day, and the goal is to make money. But outside of that, it's just having a consciousness in, sure, I need to make money. I need to pay my staff livable wages. I need to have a safe environment where they can, you know, thrive and just feel like a sense of community in this space. But also just, it's like I'm aware that I want to produce pieces consciously. It's like, it's not necessarily about the numbers for me. Initially, maybe I was a bit concerned about, you know, would we, like, can we pay the bill next month? But right now we've sort of moved past that. And we're building such a strong community where it's like our pieces, the fabric is dead stock. For the most part, we've built a community that sort of knows that, like, most likely once this is sold out, it's gone.
Yeah.
Our pieces, it's like, it's a slow fashion. We don't, it's a made to order, for example. So it's like, we don't just have pieces just sitting. It's like almost when you order is when we make it. So just employing like certain models. And somehow it's worked out. Because it feels more authentic. People feel more of a connection to the pieces, to the brand, as opposed to just, you know, produce, put out pieces, more numbers.
Yeah.
Not much of an impact. Because we've only been launched for less than a year. And I honestly couldn't have imagined like the level of growth but just with, sticking to our core values, sticking to our production models, sticking to, even with like staff, people that I have worked with, we built such a strong community. Yeah, it's like subconsciously, the people that I like, the local or fabric suppliers, we build such a relationship with them. And it's like, sometimes they're in shock at how just like, because I'll sit with them and like speak with them and like show them certain pieces that we've made from these fabric that I do buy from them. And it's such a nice community to grow with, because it's, at the end of the day, it's not just clothes. So it's not just like a business. It's not just about money. It's more of like community based. And yeah, so far it's working out.
Wow, you should be really proud of that, because that kind of community is an amazing thing to build.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You actually literally answered
Did
the
you
next
answer the whole
question. She answered everything. The real question was, how does it change your idea of growth, success, and sustainability, of your company if you want people to think about slow fashion? And you just said a community. The focus is on building the community, pouring into your consumers and showing them, yes, beyond the clothes, beyond the numbers, there is something to experience, with the brand. So yeah, you definitely answered the question. But of course, Cleo and Tash, I'll also love you guys to answer as well, because you are also growing a community. I mean, for Star Rotate to grow and to have gotten to the point it's as a result of the people who invest or who come to the business through friends. So how have you grown that community, and how have you said this community has really made an impact and changed the way we look at things and changed the way we market, or the way we interact, even and the designers you on board to the platform? Because I'm sure people see certain designers and they're super excited. So how has the community really influenced the growth of Star Rotate?
I mean, community is literally our business. I mean, even with our managed rental program, it's incredible to see like someone's wardrobe being worn on multiple other people, and then that person commenting on the photos of them. And literally everything we do is really like community. Like it is a buzzword. We actually were chatting about this the other day. Like community is quite a buzzword in businesses at the moment, but like our business is built on our community, and
it's built on sharing, right?
It's built on sharing.
And communities are built on respect. And we have literally, our customers respect one another by wearing the clothes, caring for them while they're wearing them, and returning them back into the community to be enjoyed by someone else.
Other people.
Like I think our absolute favorite thing is seeing one piece of clothing being worn on like so many different people. One to someone's graduation, one when they eloped, one for somebody's 21st.
And also how many different pieces look so different on different people. And it's incredible to see. Everyone styles it differently. Everyone's got different body types. So yeah, we really do engage with we try and engage with our audience at every point. We like, even when we deciding about a new piece and we're not sure if we should get it or not, like we'll ask our community and see what they say.
Would you rent this?
Because they are going to be wearing it.
Yeah. And it's just about sharing, and I think we've probably only had 1 or 2 times where an item, like the fact that our items come back in amazing condition after being worn time after time, it's because the people who are renting from us are part of the Star Rotate community, and they want to put that item back into the community to be worn again and again. And I mean, like for me, like a community is a group of people who share and respect one another, and like that's exactly what our business model is. It's like sharing clothes. Even at like we've heard like girls meeting each other at an event because they're all wearing Star Rotate. So they're like, oh, that's the jumpsuit that whatever, and like them sending us photos. Get together. A WhatsApp on a Saturday night from people at an event all wearing Star Rotate, being like, just made a friend because she's also wearing Star Rotate. So like, yeah, I think that's kind of what our community is about.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Making friends through fashion, through rented, circular. So cool. Yeah. Sure. We have come to the end of the session, answered every question. So I don't know if there's anything you guys would love to share with the people that are currently on, and of course people that will watch, much later. Is there any nuggets, any piece of information, any tip, trick you want to share in regards to renting, what to look out for, anything?
I think give it a chance, like it might not be something that you've ever considered, but give it a chance and see how you find it, because I think most people will realize that it's easier and cooler than they may have thought.
Yeah.
Oyin, do you want to? From a designer's perspective, of course. Okay. What?
The network's like skipping. I didn't hear that.
Oh, I just asked if there was anything, so any tip, trick, or last words you might want to share with, everyone before we go off.
I think consumers, for the most part, just be more conscious of how you consume these pieces, because for the most part, it's like it does affect every other aspect of life.
Yeah.
It's like the carbon footprint in, the production of these pieces, and even just like shipping the pieces to you. It's like just to be more consciousness in how we do consume. Yeah, this has been lovely. Thank you.
We've actually got a really great tip for what Oyin said, being more conscious.
Yeah.
And that is, do you want to explain it?
It's just like Livia Firth, this fashion activist, she talks about the 30-wear rule, and it's just like before you buy anything, just think to yourself, am I going to wear it over 30 times? And I think that's like exactly what Oyin is saying, like just being more conscious at every touch point. That's the answer.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. The session was lovely. Looking forward to connecting with everyone else. Bye.
And if you live in Cape Town, let us know.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.